Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we've got a little bit of a fun video for you. We do one of these every weekend, just something a little bit different and a little bit of fun. And this weekend, I thought I'd talk about 5 factions that could maybe become full Age of Sigmar armies. With the release of Sons of Behemoth last year, it got me thinking, like, if Games Workshop can make an army book, I guess, out of literally 2 models, then what else could become a full Age of Sigmar faction? There's really no limit to what could become a faction, really, in my mind, with how this has gone. And we've seen that they're not afraid to push boundaries with Warhammer Age of Sigmar, with the Lumineth Realm Lords, Idoneth Deepkin, and even, you know, the Death Armies like Ossiarch Bone Reapers. They're really not afraid to go out there, be different. So I thought I'd have a little bit of a chat about 5 factions I think, looking that exist in Warhammer Age of Sigmar at current, that could become full Age of Sigmar armies in their own right. And we'll talk a little bit about how they might look and what they might be and how they might come about, etc. But some of these might already exist in some form, but I'm talking about a full army supported by a battle tome and a proper range of miniatures. So that is the criteria. If an army doesn't have that, it's not, in my mind, an army that's become a full Age of Sigmar faction yet. So let's get chatting about all of this. Number 1 for our armies that might become fully fledged Warhammer Age of Sigmar armies, and I've put the Kurnothi. Now, one reason for them being number 1 on this list, and we'll get them over and done with nice and quickly, is that I've already talked about great length about what I think the Kurnothi might be in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and whether or not they're the fully fledged army in their own right, I'm not sure. I think personally they may be, I guess, the next expansion for the Sylvaneth line, and we'll have Kurnoth and Alariel come back together. You know, the old Ariel and Orion, the old Kurnoth and Isha sort of aspect coming back to the Sylvaneth. Maybe that's the thing, but maybe they might get their own army as well. Either way, I think this faction is going to see itself fully expanded into a range of models, whether that is in its own unique faction or as part of Sylvaneth. I definitely think we're going to see Kurnothi in some form over the next couple of years in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And I'd almost say this is the one that I'm almost completely sure of that is going to be a thing. When Kurnothi first came out, they were in Warhammer Underworlds, the warband you see here, and the internet was just set alight by them. Normally, with all these beast elves and stuff, you know, we had the Idoneth Deepkin, we had the weird Daughters of Cain models, and we had Lumineth after. Normally, people are pretty against all those sort of weird-looking elven models, but for most of the part, Kurnothi were actually really well received. And if Games Workshop weren't making Kurnothi as a more thing, like something bigger, I think the release of Underworlds probably showed them that they should. And getting to that point now where it's been a couple of years, maybe we're going to see some more Kurnothi on the horizon soon. But I definitely think that this faction is going to be something we see more of. They're uniquely Age of Sigmar to me. They look cool. They have some old aesthetics of the old Wood Elves, like very second Ed War Dancer sort of look. Mixed in with little beastmen, which is funny considering all the things with Wood Elves and beastmen in Warhammer Fantasy and how they're like the biggest of enemies. But I think this is going to be a faction we're going to see. There's a video I've done on the channel talking about in great detail, sort of breaking down everything about this faction and what I think about it, so you can definitely go give that a check out as well. Number 2, we've got the Order of Azyr. Now, for those who don't know what the Order of Azyr is, this is effectively, I guess, using Warhammer 40k army as an example, this is effectively the Inquisition for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. The Order of Azyr is made up of warrior priests, and we've already seen models such as the Excelsior War Priest that was released for Warhammer Quest to Silver Tower be released for, I guess, at the time devoted to Sigmar, who were very much like the Order of Azyr. Now, the Excelsior War Priest has since been discontinued as a model, but he does exist in the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound role-playing game as a playable character. For me, I think Order of Azyr is that army that everyone is looking forward to. They're one of the ones that everyone seems to talk about wanting that more grimdark feel, that darker sort of side of Sigmar's agents. Whether Stormcaster bright and heroic, the Order of Azyr are assassins and priests devout to expunging taint wherever it may come up. I think an army from the Order of Azyr, you're likely to have a lot of different heroes, and maybe it won't be a full army, maybe something that can be added to armies, looking at like how Inquisition is and assassins are sort of incorporated in Warhammer 40k. But I think a full army of these, you may see flagellants come back in some way, these devoted, I guess, serfs or servants of the Order of Azyr, matched with a whole manner of different characters. We've had note of like dark elves and all different aspects of people working for them, and most notably we have witch hunters and vampire hunters within them. We've obviously seen the latest vampire hunter shown off in Warhammer Quest Cursed City, and he's actually been expunged from the Order of Azyr. But we've also seen some great stories about Order of Azyr agents, like the Callus and Toll saga going through City of Secrets, Callus and Toll the Silver Shard, and more. We've also seen other things with Order of Azyr, and we got a nice, really cool big look at it in a novel by C.L. Werner, called The Tainted Heart, which was a nice look into the inner workings of the Order of Azyr, even if that doesn't exactly turn out how it is. I've got that video up on the channel, a review of that book, if you'd like to give that a look as well. But for me, Order of Azyr, this is just a cool army, and I think there's been a couple of debates about this, whether or not this is going to be a fully fledged army in its own right, or maybe this is an expansion for Stormcast Eternals, giving them the mortal side to their army. But with how, I guess, Stormkeeps have gone, taking in parts of Cities of Sigmar, I don't see that particularly happening anymore. Order of Azyr is definitely one that I think is interesting and would love to see as a full faction in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Number 3, I have the Legion of Chaos Ascendant. So for those who don't know what the Legion of Chaos Ascendant is, this was first shown to us in the narrative supplement Wrath of the Everchosen, which is effectively a mixed daemon army for Chaos. It's led by Be'lakor, the first Daemon Prince, the first ever chosen. Yeah, that's a weird title, but it's an army that he leads. So while you've got Archaon, who leads the hordes of Chaos Warriors, Varangard, etc., Be'lakor is leading all the demons from the, I guess, various different hosts. He's got Khorne demons, Lanesh demons, even, the unmarked demons, things like Soul Grinders, and even has Vermin Lords working for him as well. It's a really interesting sort of idea for Chaos, and I think actually gives you a great sort of counterpoint to where you've got an army like Slaves to Darkness, which is mortal heavy, undivided. Do you have this undivided Chaos Demon force where you've got a good figurehead at the front of it, because Be'lakor for me is just a great character. He's, as mentioned, he is the first ever chosen, so he was cursed to forever crown the next ever chosen after him forevermore. And some of those he's actually killed, and he has tried to kill our current ever chosen Archaon on multiple occasions. For me though, the fact we're getting Broken Realms Be'lakor next after Teclis says to me that maybe we might see an expansion for Legion of Chaos Ascendant, and who knows, maybe in the future actually see a full battle tome for the army, plus maybe even some cool, unique, new Daemon sculpts for the army. I think this is an interesting place to look and give us more unique, I guess, generic demons, as we've got things like Furies and we've got the Soul Grinders that are generic, but maybe let's look at getting some more different things, like maybe we get some cavalry and some more non-marked demons. This would be a really interesting aesthetic to have a look at, I think. Number 4, I'd like to take a look at Chaos Duardin, the Legion of Asgore. Now, first of all, I think we've got to completely do away with the name. It doesn't make sense in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Asgore was this thing that was back in Warhammer Fantasy. So for me, we've got to come up with a new name for them. I don't know whether it's Warriors of Hashut. You can keep the god aspect of their own unique god, or maybe literally just Chaos Duardin something. I think the name needs to change to represent the change in Age of Sigmar. But the reason I've put this here is because obviously by now, especially if you are a Legion of Asgore player, you've noticed your models go missing from Forge World, and it looks like Forge World are getting rid of the Age of Sigmar line from their store, which means sadly Legion of Asgore is going away, and I personally think it's a big loss. While I don't personally have a Legion of Asgore army, I've got a couple of models that I just like that are really cool, but I don't personally have a full army. I think the aesthetic of them and the idea of them is actually fantastic for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I mean, all those giant weapon trains and war machines and demon-powered engines, I think, is just, that's so Age of Sigmar, where it sort of seemed over the top in Warhammer Fantasy to me. They never sort of fit the Warhammer Fantasy feel for me personally, but I think they actually fitted better in Warhammer Age of Sigmar than they ever did in Warhammer Fantasy. They've got great looking sculpts, they've got a unique sort of aesthetic about them, and they've got this cool little quirk. Plus they've got some cool alternate units like the Bull Centaurs, Plus, if you go back in time as well, you had things like the hobgoblins there and the lamassu and the other weird creatures they could call to arms alongside them. I think for me, this is an army that needs to be made in GW plastic and refreshed and brought into the Warhammer Age of Sigmar universe properly. For me, they just completely fit. Everything about them, you just need to do some little tweaks here and there and make them a proper army. And I think you'd actually get a lot of people excited. We don't have a Chaos Elf army, and maybe we're not going to see one, but for me, a Chaos Dwarf army, having an army full of non-human chaos and non-demon chaos is cool, and I'd like to see it happen. And well, number 5, we've got to talk about, I guess, the elephant in the room with armies coming. It is, when are the Shadow Elves coming? Not if, when. For me, this is exactly what I'm waiting for an army. Malarian coming to the Mortal Realms. I think with him, he brings a whole host of new Dark Elf units, and who knows what they might be. This is the only picture we've ever had of the weird dragon, shadow, demon being guy that is Malarian, or used to be known as Malekith in the old world. We don't exactly know what's been going on too much with Malekith, or I guess Malarian now. But it sort of looks like we had people assuming he mixed or merged forms with his dragon Seraphon during the destruction of the old world, and maybe this is what he's come out to be. He does have sort of that black dragon look about him, you know, the spines and the big wings and everything like that. But what are we getting with Shadow Elves? This is the one that I'm really not sure on what exactly we're getting, but I know we're getting something. I mean, he's got to have his own army, surely. The only other possibility, I think, with Malarian is maybe he becomes part of the Daughters of Cain faction, but I really don't see that happening with Marathi, sort of not having him involved at all in her story in Broken Realms. I think he's going to be his own thing, he's going to have his own faction, and I really wonder what exactly is it going to be for me. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on what they think maybe Malarian is going to bring along with him. What is the army going to be? Because this is one, while I think it's going to happen, I don't really know an awful lot about what it might be besides Shadow Dark Elves, really. But yeah, leave some comments down below on this one. Well, thank you for watching. If there's a faction you think you'd like to see in Warhammer Age of Sigmar get fully fleshed out into a proper army, leave that down in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me, you can do so by coming and joining our Discord server, which you'll find a link to in the description of the video. While you're on YouTube as well, go check out the featured channel section on this channel, where you find a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content from a bunch of amazing people. Lastly, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who supports the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you all to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Philip Ward, Soren, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shop First, Chaos Spawn, James Crowder, and Andrew Jarvis. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by following the link in the description to either Patreon or YouTube members. Thank you all for listening and watching. Stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.